DeFi Slate team.
It's your boy Andy, and welcome back to the DeFi Slate YouTube channel. Smash the like button on this video, that really helps us out, and sit back and enjoy the content. Thank you very much. What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to the DeFi by Design podcast here today for episode 53. Interesting times going on right now in the crypto world. There's a whole lot of stuff going on. And who would have thought that countries adopting Bitcoin as legal tender would be some of the most least interesting things going on? I mean, who really even cares about that at this point? But no, I'm just messing around. There's a lot of things going on right now. It almost feels like the opportunity is too overwhelming. Like it's kind of like you could be doing NFTs, you could be doing this. There's just so many things going on. So kind of what we'd like to do today, we're here with Evgeny from Zerion, a OG portfolio tracker in the DeFi space. And basically, we're going to walk through kind of some of these opportunities, how you can capitalize on them, what's going on in DeFi, what's going on in crypto, what's bringing us mainstream, and just, also how to get involved with Zerion and get active in making sure that you are taking care of your portfolio and doing everything you can best. So I'm going to pass it over to Rob. We're actually both down here in South Florida now. Feels good. I got my Ave shirt on. We're repping it. Let's go. Episode 53 is here. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Andy. Happy to be here. Happy to be back in Florida, and stoked to be talking to Evgeny for the second time. I think you are the first repeat guest of the podcast. So
Wow,
super stoked
nice
to see what is going on at Zerion again after a little over a year since the last time we talked to you. DeFi has certainly changed dramatically. And super stoked to be talking to you about all the updates going on with DeFi as a whole and Zerion. So I'll pass it over to you. And how you doing this morning, man?
Thank you, guys. I'm really excited to be here again. And happy to talk about DeFi and NFTs and everything that's going on. And welcome to all the listeners.
Yeah. Awesome. Cool.
Glad to have you back.
Evgeny, there's been a lot going on at Zerion. Do you want to kind of give us a high level, what you're super excited about, what is going on at Zerion, for anyone that's listening to start getting their toes wetted?
Yeah, for sure. So this year was actually an amazing year for us. Actually, even better than I would say the 2020. So pretty much the first wave of growth we had in 2020, and now I guess like the biggest one happened in May of this year. So effectively, a lot of the growth is coming from the fact that people are getting more excited about DeFi just in general. So which actually I'm super stoked to see, because for like a non-custodial type of product, it's unusual to see that there's kind of like many people joining the space. So that's exciting. We've seen a ton of new protocols and projects and stakings and farms, etc., being launched, and this is definitely becoming overwhelming. So when we were starting, it was probably 3 protocols out there: the Maker, Compound, and Uniswap. And in the last 2 years, it's been growing like crazy. So now I can't really keep track of everything that is going on. Like I actually kind of stopped doing some degen stuff because this is just taking too much time and really distracting from work. And also on top of that, we had this NFT boom this year, which brought another layer of complexity to the whole thing. So it's just a bit overwhelming for sure. Yes, one thing, just to kind of like for the ones who are not too familiar with Zerion, just walk everyone through what we do. So we started as a portfolio tracker, so it's an automatic one in contrast to say something like Blockfolio, allowing you to see. You just need to plug in your public address, and we'll fetch all the data from the blockchain, including obviously all the ERC20s. So we support over, I think it's getting closer to like 100,000 tokens now in Ethereum. We will fetch all the protocols where you have staked stuff, or like Aave, or different Compound, etc. So the protocols where you have things, will just fetch all this data, and we'll also give you like a price on the more sophisticated tokens, like different strategies or vaults, etc., such that you have a pretty good overview of your portfolio. We'll also have the history page, which a lot of people love. So it's a good overview of the transactions that you've done anywhere on within the DeFi space. Recently, I think like the big one was our dive into the NFT space. So we now show all the NFTs you have on your wallet, and yeah, working on like introducing more features to that part of Zerion. And lastly, it's obviously worth mentioning the mobile app. It's I guess like by far the best product in terms of retention for us. It's people open it on average, I think 9 times a day, and yeah, has like a ton of cool features. So all of that, the stuff that I mentioned, and obviously the trading part. So you're able to trade right from your mobile phone using the best liquidity from Uniswap, Sushi. All essentially we aggregate everything and don't charge fees on top. That's kind of a very brief intro to the Zerion as a product.
Yeah. Yeah, of course, all the degens are checking their portfolios 9 times a day. It couldn't be me. No, never. Yeah, no, that's awesome. Appreciate the overview. I think if you're new here, guys, you should definitely be checking out Zerion, using it. If you're old here and this isn't your first rodeo, I'm sure you already use it or have used it. So appreciate the insights. And kind of who would have thought the last time we spoke, which is kind of the beginning of the DeFi summer, that NFTs would not only onboard way more people into Ethereum, but that they would be just so much more powerful as a tool for marketing, as a way to get the community together inside of the Ethereum users already. Like it's nuts. Kind of what are your thoughts on the recent evolutions of the pies of Ethereum, kind of DAOs, NFTs, DeFi, and kind of how they're evolving, with regards to the mainstream use cases and kind of bringing more people in, which is where we kind of see Zerion fit in. It's kind of bringing people in, giving them an easy place to track their portfolio. But yeah, kind of how do you see that evolution happening with those 3 components?
Right. I think that's super relevant. To be honest, I have missed the first wave of NFTs myself. We've been obviously like one of the earliest adopters with CryptoKitties back then, who had the support for NFTs like or in the wallet called Tokenary a very long time ago, like 3 years ago or so. But that was too early, I think. So this time, yeah, it kind of came out of nowhere. So OpenSea had close to zero type volume just like months before, and at some point they just like hit millions and millions of volume. Yeah, so definitely exciting to watch. I think what I like about this is that it kind of has a different use case, which is separate from the financial one, which is DeFi mainly is about. I mean, obviously NFTs a lot of them are very speculative, but at the same time, people who are creating them, they're not really correlated with like the crypto token cycles. So with the tokens, everything is just like, you either in a bull market or everything is just like, no one wants to use it, no one wants to see or trade anything, and it just goes to zero type of thing. With NFTs, I think now we have, on one hand we have DeFi, we have some macro events that affect different altcoins, and we now have, artists that spend their time working new cool stuff, and they don't really care about where the market is in terms of the hype cycle. So for them, it's just like try to sell this anyway. So I think that's good. Speaking of DAOs, it's a very promising, I think, idea, and it's obviously something where we'll end up. I think all of the companies would be in a way formed as a DAO, just because it's a better tool for organizing and managing folks together. So that's yeah, I'm super excited about that. I think like internally we've been calling this kind of like a combination of 3 a metaverse, and I think that's a common narrative right now within the crypto space. So yeah, we see them all as part of this metaverse, because this is just something that is not necessarily connected to like the state. So the state is not the one that you're trusting for these things to happen. So effectively, yeah, these are kind of Ethereum becomes this jurisdiction where you can create the company, where you can have the financial services, where you can have property rights as NFTs. Yeah. I think that's really cool. So yeah, excited about that. Yeah. I think NFTs are just early, like super early right now. It's very simple. Buy this JPEG and sell it 3 times higher. That's kind of it. But we're just, I think, scratching the surface. I think in the future NFTs, it's just like with DeFi, right? Like ICOs were, what NFTs are right now, in terms of the use cases and the complexity of it. So in the future, I believe, NFTs would be as sophisticated as DeFi is right now.
Yeah, the way that kind of what we call the metaverse, which contains DeFi and NFTs, is similar. Almost, it is creating interoperability between kind of these different collections, different universes of characters. And I kind of think of it like you got DC Comics, and I was never big into like comic books or superheroes or whatnot, but you got DC Comics and then Marvel. And if those worlds were to collide, you can kind of have like NFTs trade between these different universes, between the Pudgy Penguins and the Crypto Punks. You can start to share kind of collectibles and transact, assets across the metaverse, which is super cool.
Right.
And it starts to unveil kind of the different use cases of NFTs, of Ethereum overall. My question is more kind of what Zerion is seeing on the user activity side in terms of these different use cases. Is it more so NFTs? Is it more so DeFi and exchange? And then which of those trends do you see kind of playing out in the long term? Maybe which ones do you see kind of fizzling out and giving way to more?
Right, it's a very hard question. So I think speaking of the trends that we see, that's kind of more obvious, but in a way they're fluctuating quite a bit. So in May we had a lot of dog coins being traded, like a ton of altcoins and and cat coins, etc., etc. So people are just coming from all over and finding the assets that I've never heard about and like putting money in. Like probably a bunch of people were running marketing campaigns around that. But then this NFT boom came. That's like the second wave of the NFT. The first one was like in spring and in the winter, and then now like the second wave came in with this new like moving parts. So we started kind of like paying more attention to that, and as a product we're getting too many requests to ignore it in terms of the integration. Recently, I think like DeFi is again kind of on a bit of a rise, maybe connected with the Chinese ban. But yeah, definitely a lot of excitement about tokens still. Hard to say, to be honest. In terms of the use cases, I think what we've traditionally seen the bull market is usually characterized by a lot of trading and like trading obviously of tokens and then NFTs now. We did see, obviously we follow the market trends and see how the OpenSea volumes dropped significantly recently, like in September, but it's hard to tell what's going to happen even next month. I don't know. Lending was not like a big use case for us for quite some time. Borrowing is like really fluctuating, so I think like people sometimes just want to leverage a bit more, and that's how they like end up on borrowing more money. So it's kind of connected with like the trading use case. But yeah, these are the main ones.
Cool. Yeah. And there's a lot of different possibilities now in DeFi. We're kind of seeing like this generation 2 DeFi. So I think this is an interesting thing to touch on is the changes that we've seen from our Gen 1 DeFi. So our conversation, where we had Compound and Aave, and they kind of Compound had just kind of launched their farming, and Uniswap had came out, and now we've got like abracadabra money trying to make decentralized stablecoins, and we've got like just all sorts of projects that are similar to like this generation 2 built on anonymous teams. And I'm kind of curious what your thoughts are as far as how DeFi has changed for the better, in the last year or so, and how it maybe has changed for the worse as well.
Right. I think it's a good question. So if I'm understanding, like actually we didn't divide this into DeFi first generation and DeFi second gen, but I think I know what you're referring to. So with all the new projects, I think it's good and bad at the same time, because the good thing about the space being so hyped up is that you have great teams joining and like actually committing themselves to build something great, and at the same time you get a ton of kind of like not so committed teams joining the same space, and within the anonymity kind of like trend of launching something in the anonymous fashion, you can see both. Like, you can see really great people who just want to do like a purely fair launch and everything related to that. And at the same time, you get like scammers trying to do some random airdrop and steal everyone's money through the allowance thing. Yeah, so I guess it's great that it brings more people, and we'll have many new teams doing the right things and actually experimenting with a lot of things. So anonymity actually gives this you don't have to sacrifice your existing job sample to something as an experiment and see if that's working out or not. Yeah, and I guess time will tell. In a bit, we'll know whether everyone will stay within this space. My sense is not, but we'll get a ton of great projects.
Yeah, most definitely. I think the anonymous concept is big for people in the United States. Right now, we're seeing quite a bit of crackdown all across the board. Right. I wouldn't be surprised if we see more and more, which, I mean, that's kind of the whole point. Is like there's like a meme. It's like, well, yeah, they're gonna ban some front end, but like they can't stop the smart contracts. So just keep on pushing forward. And I kind of view DAOs in
we're the front end.
Yes, exactly. I kind of view DAOs in this light as well. Like, you can try to stop these organizations from operating on chain, decentralized way, but like, how are you really going to stop them if they have either a token or if they have teams all over the place growing? And of course, in this bull run, everybody wants to be a part of a DAOs. DAOs are great. Everyone's making money. The incentives are there, but the true test will kind of come once we see what happens in the next few years, whether it be bull or bear. But I'm curious if you see a rise in DAOs coming in 2022. But really, more importantly, like I'm curious what your thoughts are on transitioning a traditional company like Zerion, like DeFi Slate, like a different protocol to a DAO. Is that possible? Is it reasonable? What do you see as the added benefits? So first, let's touch on, is 2022 the year of the DAOs, and then how to transition a company to a DAO?
Yeah, to answer the first question, I think we'll definitely see the DAOs grow. I don't know whether they're gonna hit like some kind of like NFT moment with a lot of hype around them. I think they're still, it's harder with the DAOs because obviously like these are kind of investment vehicles most of the time. Sometimes these are just treasury management, but they usually have a pretty high barrier of entry, so they're not as easy, I would say, as like buying an NFT. But we'll see. Maybe we're definitely watching this trend. I'm hopeful that we're not going to miss this one. Speaking of just the evolution of companies and how DAOs can benefit like a normal company, we spent quite a bit of time on this internally, always like discussing and thinking about this. Honestly, I would prefer to do that and like as soon as possible. That's kind of like the approach that we're taking. So as soon as we have the tools to move most of our operations into a DAO, I think that makes perfect sense. Because we don't really need a jurisdiction because we're inherently a decentralized team. We have about 6 or 7 countries where people work from, and we don't have we have an office space, but it's not obligatory for people to go there. So we in a way operate as a DAO already. We are looking to involve more people into building out parts of Zerion at least. So I think that's a trend. I think that makes sense. It's kind of like running a company with all the benefits without the downsides of like specific jurisdictions and specific kind of like you need to deal with payroll, and crypto payroll is free. So you need to deal with contractors, or you need to deal with voting, and you need to pay a ton of money to lawyers. And with the DAO, you can just codify it all. I think the frameworks are just not all there, but we'll have at some point a ton of great code that works well, that handles kind of like I see it as a module system. So if you want, I don't know, connect to some quorum or like board of directors, you can connect it to DAO, like enable it in the interface. You want a payroll, like international payroll, you can do that. You want invoicing, so you can plug in a ton of things into the DAO. It's going to be super cheap to run. And I think for all the new generations, it doesn't really make sense to launch anything but through a DAO. Yeah, that's just my take on this.
Yeah, that starts to tap into, I think, the second part of Andy's question, as far as how does a company transition from traditional, maybe LLC corporate style into a DAO. And I think the modular approach that you described, being able to plug in different technologies into some existing workflow in the corporate world is how it's a gradual transition. Because getting kind of companies to switch all of their operations over in a decentralized way is almost like a shell shock. But if we can start to plug in this functionality piece by piece, then we'll start to probably see much more adoption just because it's easier to implement a DAO style of operations.
Right. Yeah, I think this process is not yet complete, and we've been discussing this with Dean that if you want to launch a startup, it's probably somewhere like how to make something that people are using already within the normal startup world and apply it to a DAO. There's like a ton of opportunity there. I think for essentially for any company, you need just a few basic pieces, and all of them are kind of already being built out. So it's quite fascinating to see how. We have this Gnosis multi-sig that we're using, and before we just had Gnosis, and now there's like Parcel Money, for example, which is another great tool to pay people through the multi-sig. I think in the future it's going to be more and more, and the great thing that is, as like the nature of crypto, everything is on the verifiable ledger, so you can plug in a ton of different interfaces that do their own thing better than others. And you can build your stack, like all the operations and management can be done from like amazing tools that are accessible to everyone. And I think that's amazing in contrast to how it currently works with, say, like local, I don't know if you've tried that, but like signing up for some like unemployment insurance within a specific state, and you can have to do it, but like if you have in places in 2 states in the US, you have to have like 2 different things. And access that from like the state created software that is lagging like hell. So it's
the state created software. Either Evgeny's had a few drinks and the libertarians coming out, or we're just getting started here, boys. I don't know which one it is. I think I read this article, and it was this young woman's interpretation of a crypto New York party. I think it was on the Bankless blog or something in the last few days. And it was literally hilarious because she had a line in there and it was like, after a few drinks, this guy warned me, be careful because the libertarian's going to start coming out. And here we are talking state-owned softwares. Oh, man. So I think that's probably—
I actually don't know a better way to say it, but
right.
This was my experience. It's different also for different countries. So for example, in the UK, I had like a very pleasant experience working with state-created software versus like in the US, it was a nightmare.
Yeah.
Let's move on.
That's got to be one of the biggest use cases for DAOs, especially for protocols with tokens or who are looking to basically do things that, we'll just put it out there that it could be legally either in the gray area or just not really stated for what it is now. You put it to a DAO, you decentralize it, and you do your best to kind of grow this in this organization, as you see it in a decentralized fashion. It's community owned. And I think that's a huge thing that NFTs and DAOs are really bringing that DeFi kind of lacked. DeFi, it's a lot of whale owned. And I think over time it'll be more distributed, but really NFTs and DAOs seem to be really huge on this concept of community ownership. And that's something that is really important to me personally and to, everybody, I think, in crypto.
Yeah, Andy, I think that is an important point to highlight, is the community-owned nature of the DAOs, because it really separates from existing styles of ownership. If you kind of separate existing businesses into for-profit and non-for-profit, DAOs are almost right at the center of that, kind of like a closed loop of aligned incentives for the community. It's not for profit, but it isn't totally for profit trying to create a surplus. It's really just identifying incentives and providing value to those who are involved. Evgeny, do you see kind of DAOs following a similar route and maybe continuing to pioneer like this middle ground, or ultimately do they fall into like one of these other categories?
Right. My view on that is that I think DAOs is just a better tool, and that's similar to DeFi. I think it's hard to say like whether DAOs are necessarily, that or the others, like necessarily controlled or like community owned fully. I think we'll see DAOs on all, on all spectrums. So we'll have, DAO owned by a few folks just managing their own capital and not letting anyone in. But even though like you can still, I guess, call it a DAO, and we'll have a fully community owned ones. I think it's just before it wasn't possible to imagine that something can be managed by, say, like millions of people. With crypto and DAOs, this is just becoming possible, and we'll I guess experiment with more and with new and innovative approaches to governance and management of something like of a big scale, and this wasn't seen before ever. So all the companies created, like Facebooks and Googles of the world, they have around 100K, maybe even less stakeholders, maybe a bit more, I guess, like through the funds and stuff. But effectively, this is like small of what it actually can be, and we haven't seen the companies maybe owned by 1 billion people. Like, how would that look like? That's going to be, I think, interesting and only possible with the DAO. So that's why I see them as like just an innovation of the way how we can manage stuff. And not something very specific. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, 100%. I think the point you made with regards to the distributed ownership is huge. While there are pitfalls to decentralizing in terms of decision making, the pros kind of outweigh the cons, especially if you have a really solid community. And I think this is something that people are excited about in the now. Like, people want to join DAOs, people want to be here for friends, and frankly, in this point in the market, if you're an OG, you've probably done pretty well for yourself, and you're kind of like, all right, well, what do I need more than, instead of asking what can crypto do for me, it's like, what can I do for crypto? What can I do to contribute, to help and to help grow this ecosystem, as I want to see it. And we all kind of have our own visions, but we all kind of align with the same libertarian, non-state owned software. No, I'm kidding. But like, very much so, very much so this ethos, and it gets you excited. So yeah, I'm curious for you personal, Evgeny, what are you most excited about in the coming weeks, months, years? Is there a specific NFT drop? Is there a DAO that you want to join? Is there something coming up on Zerion that you're stoked about? Like, what are you stoked about?
Right. To say the first, let's say, I would say like my focus is definitely on what is happening within Zerion. So this is kind of like 95% of my attention. I definitely don't want to show anything because I'm not too, I guess, familiar with NFT drops. I occasionally participate in them as I see some of my friends just ape into something. I'm like, oh, I'm feeling some FOMO and I'm just doing that. But that's purely for fun, and like just to keep hand on the pulse of the market, what's happening. About the future of this space, I'm excited about just the evolution of like layer twos. This is a big power play happening right now. It's unclear who is winning, and it's yet to be seen. And I think this tension is visible across the board. I think it's within the layer twos, it's within the side chains, it's within the NFT community. We kind of have some leaders there, but we have so many rivals. Everyone wants like to be in it. Same goes to the protocols, and I guess like the tensions are high, and it's yet to be seen who will survive this in the next couple of years. That's, I guess, one. I'm excited about the wallet space because we are entering the wallet space as well, and it's yet to be seen like who can dethrone MetaMask, and if that's even possible. My sense is that it is, and we have a plan to do that. But yeah, that's going to be interesting to watch. Yeah, these are the main things. I guess I'm not too excited about very much like something very, very specific. I mean, like a specific project that I want to show. Probably not too many.
Yeah, so more like the developing trends that are coming out.
Yeah.
And you mentioned kind of the dethroning MetaMask, which, of course, is the most popular Ethereum wallet and Web3 wallet right now. Could you kind of walk us through just brief overview of what that might look like and how you plan on doing that? And I guess to be a little bit more specific with that question is more on the mobile implementation, because that is something that a lot of DeFi applications haven't mastered yet, is some way to connect Web3 in a easy to use, familiar user experience way on mobile. So could you kind of walk us through that and how you see the integration between some sort of Web3 wallet on mobile?
Yeah, actually quite a bit of development happening there right now. So first of all, I guess for anyone who have ever used MetaMask, they know the feeling, and there's not much to say about that. So it's just feels like prior to iPhone, you had QWERTY keyboards, and that's the feel that I'm getting from the existing version of MetaMask.
Come on, it's not that bad.
Well, I don't want to be disrespectful. Obviously, they've done a lot of great things, and I guess like the extension is the best still on the market. But the mobile experience, it really sucks, and it sucks for everyone. It's not just them. I think it's just not working, and with layer 2s, it's also completely broken. What we are excited about is the next version of Wallet Connect, which we are also kind of like working closely with the Wallet Connect team to kind of shape up this a bit. Excited about. I've seen like what Richard Burton was publishing recently about the Safari extensions and like in iOS 15. So I think the UX of the wallet experience on mobile and the browsing experience can already be better. That's first, and this is what we're gonna do, and it can become a million times better than even using, say, like your traditional like a login type of stuff from Web 2, just by the nature of Web 3. In terms of specifics, we want to utilize all the capabilities of native operating systems. So on desktop, it's going to be Touch ID on your Mac, and it's going to be a seamless connection with the dApp. And it can happen in any browser, not just through an extension in Chrome. So you don't actually have to install an extension. The keys will be synchronized between devices, so you don't have to move keys around. Everything will be in the key store. So these are like the small parts of it. It's definitely going to work with every dApp, hopefully through Wallet Connect 2.0 as soon as it comes out. And some other plans that I'm not going to talk about.
Nice. Yeah, DeFi on mobile, huge. I know that the CeeLo network team is working big on that. In fact, that is their only priority, is bringing DeFi to mobile. I mean, that's kind of like, the next step.
Yeah, I was just saying that it has been their priority for quite some time, because I've been speaking with their team a while ago. I guess the big difference. One thing I forgot to mention answering the previous question. So speaking of MetaMask, it's like the only reason why people spend so much time on Zerion already is that because we show the correct portfolio. So for them, in order to kind of like be competitive, they would need to do a lot on kind of like the UX of overall experience. So history transactions, portfolio tracking, NFTs, better NFT support, etc. So all the stuff that we've been doing, they would have to re-implement. So for us to add a wallet, it seems like an easier pool than for them to add everything that relates to the actual product experience. So that's how we think about it.
Nice. Yeah, ultimately these kind of these tracking mechanisms are going to be under one roof, and it's easier for Zerion to build out a wallet than MetaMask build out the entire tracker. There is plenty of kind of UX issues as far as adding tokens to the wallet. They don't have NFT compatibility. Just a few of the things that you mentioned, and even the exchange function is very clunky, like within their extension. So rather than plugging into all of these different places, ultimately they'll kind of fall under one suite, is what you're saying. and you're really positioning Zerion to be that suite of DeFi products. Well, not just DeFi, but really the entire metaverse.
All I want is a one place where I can go to a multi-chain wallet aggregator, DEX aggregator, a lending and borrowing aggregator, an NFT aggregator, where I can just do everything in one place. All my trades with the best liquidity across all the chains. I can view all the NFTs on all the chains that I have all in one place. I can do everything on every chain in one place without ever having to move. Evgeny, what the hell is taking so long, dude?
That's the only right question here.
Oh no!
Yeah.
I'm excited for the cross.
Sorry, Andy. We're working on this.
Yeah, right. Oh man.
Day and night.
A big narrative right now too is bridges. I mean, people are gassed up about these bridges. You know, being able to do this and move from here to here. You know, that's definitely something that is the traditional users are going to have no clue how to do or why to do it. But if DeFi can make the front end easy, like you just press a button, like to go from here to here and it happens quick, like great. Because I think bridges are like far too complicated for anybody to really get into unless they're like in it already.
And ultimately it shouldn't matter, right? Like if the liquidity is aggregated, why does it matter what chain you're operating on?
I think that's a big question for sure. I'm not sure if I would say that like we should necessarily fall into let's just not care about what chain the asset lives on. I think it matters for some people, doesn't matter for others. So there are quite a bit of complexity associated with like the UX of it. So you can make it like really simple. You don't even need to think about where your asset lives. But what if it, just most of your asset end up being on some new unproven centralized chain, which happened to have some liquidity at some point, and then you kind of like stuck and suddenly all your assets are gone because of that reason. That like who is responsible for that type of for putting your money into that specific chain. So I guess with that, we've started thinking that in the beginning, at least, we should be giving people the option. So better educate and not hide, and try to get people to understand what it does mean to store assets on Ethereum versus like storing them on Binance Smart Chain. What are the risks and benefits of either approaches? And then like let them decide. And then in the future, I guess we'll start to remove some of the stuff that is unnecessary for users to see. So yeah, I would say that's not the simplest solution, just to hide everything from the user, because with like, these L2s are still in kind of like beta type of stage, and everything can go sideways easily. Yeah, so I wouldn't risk the user's funds for that matter.
Yeah, it's definitely not an easy thing to accomplish, and like an easy tool. Like that's probably why we haven't seen a major cross-chain DEX yet. Yeah, right. It would, I guess what it would take is like, as soon as you press transact, it would have to search for the best liquidity across all the DEXs, which would obviously be on Ethereum, unless some crazy pair, which is, obviously okay too. Like for example, Avalanche has their own tokens, and then it would have to bridge your funds to that chain immediately, conduct a trade, bridge it back to where you started, and then give you the token, which that sounds like a lot of gas and it sounds like a lot of time. So however that can be accomplished quickly, it would be insane. But I think we're still years, or at least a year away, probably.
That's a good question. Yeah, I don't know. It seems like there are quite a few teams working on something similar. So we know that Mover, for example, is working on that, and there's Hop Exchange, and there's Connect, and everyone is trying to solve this, and it's going to be interesting to see how that evolves. I think we'll see different types of use cases and different types of chains. So some basic trading would mainly happen, I guess, like even I would say that it's going to happen outside of Ethereum. So obviously some volume will still be on Ethereum, maybe on L2s, which is still fairly expensive. Some less important stuff, speculation is going to happen, I guess, outside of maybe like ETH 2.0. But voting rights, so the governance, I think, would be held on Ethereum. All the treasuries are going to be on Ethereum. That's just my guess at the moment. So the stuff that is important and valuable and really like and important not to lose, that's going to be on Ether. And I think we'll have so many votes happening and like so many on-chain, funds moving stuff around and DAOs and everything. That's gonna, already overwhelm Ethereum. The trading stuff is like going to move to some kind of like more centralized, faster venues. Yeah, that's my take on it.
Interesting.
Yeah, the systemic types of changes that could be in effect are, on Ethereum because it's the most secure. And then we're even seeing kind of NFTs really spawn from Ethereum, probably because it's just been around the longest and it has kind of the cultural and historical background to support some really just highly valuable NFTs. But now other chains are starting to pop up as well, which is probably where that trend continues, to be able to onboard the masses into something with low gas. And as kind of these NFTs start to emerge with some more utility, whether it's part of a game or if it's some interconnectedness in their community, that can only really be handled by some other chain other than Ethereum.
Yeah, I think that's right. That's the current state of things, and I think that's kind of cool. We'll have some OG NFTs living on Ethereum, like CryptoPunks, for example, but like even metadata stored in ETH, super expensive to make a transaction. And then we'll have a ton of like small cap type of NFTs used for, events, whatever, like anything. Vadim had this cool idea that NFTs are the new cookies of the blockchain world. I kind of like this. I think it resonates quite a bit. So definitely not the cookies. CryptoPunks are not going to be the cookies, but the stuff that will be on like all the chains that are out the satellite chains. It's going to be massive, millions of NFTs and on millions of wallets.
Yeah, guys, Mooncats are undervalued. 2017 OG floor price 1.2. Like, come on, guys, they are undervalued. Look, it's a Mooncat. Like, come on, it's the cookies of Web3. Oh man, yeah, no, it's really interesting to see the development of kind of how we alternate through these chains. Honestly, there's NFTs on different chains right now that are going crazy as well, because kind of less people are there and they're easier to use, cheaper. I know Solana's been seeing a whole lot of traction, and there's a lot of stuff going on with the NFT game, with the multi-chain world game. And I mean, there's just too much to keep up with. And I think that's kind of what I'm most excited about in the next year or so, is just how this multi-chain world evolves and develops, and kind of which chains that we're using now become the EOS and the Trons and the Dragon chains, and which chains, stick around for 3, 4, 5, 6. And then, eventually, if you stick around for the next 3, 4, 5 years, you're probably going to be around for another 10. So that'll be a really interesting thing to kind of watch play out.
Right now, it seems like Cardano is the next EOS. I'm not sure if this is a very unpopular opinion, but I've tried using Cardano. It's like EOS. No, it works. Goodness. I guess like it does send transactions, but EOS was the worst. I think like when you need to pay to create an account, I think that was the most stupid idea that I've ever seen within like the blockchain space.
Yeah, isn't it crazy that those projects could have capitalized so huge on DeFi if they had just built and just kept building and just not just basically like, I don't know, just screwed off. And the only thing was there wasn't really DeFi in 17, 18. So like they didn't really have a lot to build with. Like we hardly even had stable coins. So it's kind of tough for them to see what was coming, but man, like if EOS just like kept building, they'd be a DeFi powerhouse right now. But again, they didn't have the tooling, and I think we'll look back and say that in a few years about some projects that we see now.
Oh, I think they were just trying to attract a different kind of people. So Ethereum was always so focused on developers, and that's why they like it, and that's why they sticked around and started building stuff. Because Ethereum didn't plan for DeFi, didn't plan for NFTs. It just emerged naturally without them essentially anticipating all of the stuff that's going to be happening. So with EOS, I guess they were mainly focused on investors and not on the users, aka developers.
Yeah, I think Solana is an example of a team that continued to build, through the bear markets and kind of the ups and downs in the prices. Kind of they had the foresight to see what was coming and kept on building and actually shipping product, whereas teams like Cardano, EOS have had all these kind of lofty ideas, had more of an investor oriented approach, and simply just didn't really ship anything. And now that we have a more substantial user base, they're lacking that community around their products because they were never able to get to a point where people can use their technology. It's interesting to me how a lot of people have continued to follow those early stage projects, Cardano, Polkadot, but they've never really shipped. Like why? And I guess it's tough for me to put myself in that type of person's shoes, where why continue to follow something where they haven't really delivered on their promises or ideas.
Yeah, well, I guess you can say the same thing about Ethereum. So I guess from the Twitter feed, it looks somewhat similar for someone who is not really deep into the water. So Ethereum did not, for example, deliver on the promises to move to proof of stake as early as 2017. So it's been years and years they've been delaying stuff, but it doesn't mean they haven't been doing stuff. So they've been working, I guess, hard to the extent possible. So I think for it's hard to blame someone for not understanding the intricacies, the small technicalities that go into analyzing these chains. And really hard to say, even for people who are OGs of crypto, selecting what's going to take off. I think price is really sometimes independent from what they actually the team ships, unless they're especially on the bull market. And after that, stuff is figured out most of the time.
Yeah. And a lot of the OGs are kind of, pretty well off these days, kind of hanging out in the shadows, either helping, contributing, shit posting. And I mean, you kind of deserve this euphoria that we're seeing today as Bitcoin breaks 55,000, 54,000. And you're just kind of sitting back I survived 2017, 2018. I didn't blow up on leverage trading. I didn't, it was, dude, it was dark, man. Twitter was dead. Nobody was building. There was just nothing going on. There was no volume on altcoin pairs. It's just it was slow. And the new people coming in this year and last year, great. We totally want them to crush it, do well. But the ones who've stayed along for the ride the last few years, we deserve it almost, right? So it's kind of go get them. And enjoy that euphoria vibes and enjoy the portfolio tracker because, push through. So it's good. It's good, man. Oh, man.
So Evgeny, we're nearing kind of the top of the hour here, and there's one question that we ask pretty much every podcast guest. We probably asked last time. I'm sorry to say I don't remember who your answer was, but yeah, we'll go ahead and ask again, and then maybe we'll check back to see if the answer was the same. So the question is, if you okay, so I'll go ahead and say it again. If you were to pitch anyone in the world, quick 60-second elevator pitch on Zerion and on DeFi and crypto, the entire metaverse, who would it be to pitch to and why?
It's a good idea. Good question. Let me think for a second. So the question is who would I pitch Zerion to, and why? That's a hard one.
Someone giga famous.
Who do you want to bring into the metaverse?
Let me think for another second. It's a really hard one because I'm battling between quite a few different options. And I can see the disadvantages of many of them. Let's just say Okay, let's go ahead with Putin. I think that's a funny one. uh, and he doesn't even use internet as far as I know. And I don't think he just like sees the upside and the potential of like how that can evolve. So bringing him in, like at least trying to explain that to him would be a big benefit, because like currently we see this, US versus China trying to battle over like who is the going to be the worst for crypto. I think that's the competition they're in right now. So I think there's a good chance that and that's also, it would be great for us if Putin gets it. But yeah, uh, that that's
Nice.
it. I don't actually remember who I said last time. Do you guys remember?
No, I don't think so. But that Putin is about as good as it gets in terms of any answer. So that's
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah, man. Well, hey, it was an absolute pleasure, Evgeny. I appreciate you coming on, and and Zerion sponsoring DeFi Slate. Of course, it's been an absolute journey these last few years, and yeah, man. I mean, enjoy the pumps. We've earned it, and yeah, don't dump too hard on all the news. All right.
Thank you, guys. It was a pleasure. Thank you.